Welcome to the Regular Guys Bible Study, where everyday men dive into Scripture with honest questions and real-life insights. Every episode breaks down one chapter of the Bible, exploring its history, cultural context, and meaning, then connects it to challenges and choices we face every day. No fluff, no jargon, no religious dogma, just timeless truths for regular guys trying to live it out. Hey guys, what's up? I am your host, Patrick Chicalisi. With me today, I have my guest, Mark Littlejohn, a construction entrepreneur and small business owner. Brooke Silvestri is an executive vice president and managing director for institutional banking. And we have Rudy Plata, a lead product and marketing manager in the media and entertainment industry. We are just regular guys who love God and are seeking to know Him better. Now let's dive right into the scripture. Hey guys, welcome.
Morning.
I'm excited today. We are continuing our sessions on the Sermon on the Mount, and last time we spoke about a lot of different cool things. Today buckle up because we're gonna hit some hot topics today. So I'm excited about that. But just to kind of recap of where we've been, and so that we kind of have an idea of where we're going. We started with the Sermon on the Mount with Jesus noticing that there was a group of people following him. And he's about to lay out what it means to be a Christian, to be a citizen of the kingdom of heaven. And so he starts by putting out the image or portraying the image of his authority here. And so the way he does that, he takes his followers up on a mountain and he sits down. And remember, that is really indicative of initially God speaking to Moses on the mountain to give them the law. Well, Jesus is about to give them a whole new way of looking at the law. As a matter of fact, he says that he didn't come to abolish the law, but to fulfill the law. And in order to do that, he starts with the Beatitudes. And what the Beatitudes are is really about taking the law, fulfilling it, but raising the bar on it. And so we talked about things like, well, if you have anger in your heart, then you've already committed murder. You know, if you've already lusted after a woman, then you've already committed adultery. And so those type of concepts, and what he was really doing is saying that it's not about fulfilling the do's and don'ts of religion. It's about having a changed heart. And really that's what the Beatitudes begins the Sermon on the Mount. And then he goes into, in order to be a citizen of the kingdom of heaven, you have to be salt and light. You have to be a preservative, right? We can't do what the Pharisees do. Your righteousness has to surpass that. And so we're going to get into even more of that today. So today what we're going to be talking about, the first one are oaths, not making any oaths. And we've all heard the saying, let your yes be yes and your no be no, but we're going to dig into that a little bit. So let's take a look now in Matthew 5. We're still in chapter 5, and I'm going to start in verse 33. And I'm reading from the NIV. Again, you have heard that it was said to the people long ago, do not break your oath, but fulfill to the Lord the vows you have made. But I tell you, do not swear an oath at all, either by heaven, for it is God's throne, or by earth, for it is his footstool, or by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. And do not swear by your head, for you cannot make even one hair white or black. All you need to say is simply yes or no. Anything beyond that comes from the evil one. Well, when I read that, I was a little confused as to, what is he really talking about? Like anything other than yes or no or swearing of any kind comes from the evil one. I was a little bit taken back by that. So as I began to research, this whole thing what Jesus is talking about here is really about the appearance of spirituality. what he was really trying to convey is that, you, again, we're talking about the matter of the heart, of like what's in their heart, and having right motives. Okay. And so the Jewish people of the day, they were bent on keeping the law, right? And they believed that if they kept the law, that kept them in right standing with God. And so Jesus is challenging that, because their whole culture was based around do's and don'ts, right and wrong. And remember the ninth commandment, thou shalt not lie. Well, they wanted a way to make an oath or swear and not be held totally accountable for it. So they would be able to tell like little white lies to give the appearance of spirituality, but not really, quote unquote, breaking a rule per se. So the things that they would do would be, they would swear. It's like kind of like what today, like, well, I swear to God, I swear this, I swear on my mother's grave, or I swear, right. And it's supposed to somehow add credibility to who you are. It's supposed to somehow make the person that you're swearing to, or the issue that you're swearing about, give you somehow extra validation. But what Jesus is saying is like, that's not true. If you're going to be a citizen of the kingdom of heaven, you got to let your yes be yes and your no be no. It's not about the letter of the law. It's about the spirit of the law and having right intentions in your heart. So what these guys were doing, they had a whole hierarchy of different types of lies that they could tell and not be held accountable for it. So that was kind of, so what do you guys think about that so far?
I think a lot of what he discusses here is, it just increases the value of what you see is what you get.
Yeah.
Right. There's no veil. There's no, or there shouldn't be. There shouldn't be the veil. There shouldn't be some, like you said, ulterior motive, or some sneaky way that you're trying to, get around what's at the heart of the matter. And like you said, the spirit of our answer is probably more important than the actual words that we use. And that all the extra, I swear on my mother's grave, I think does exactly the opposite.
Right.
And raises the eyebrows of whoever you're talking to, going, why do you have to add all the extras?
Yeah, but I think people are used to that, and it's just an easy outlet.
Yeah.
Right. It's another thing that we've talked about numerous times on checking the box.
Right.
Well, again, it goes back to that little white lie.
Yeah.
Okay, I can embellish a little bit. So,
Sure.
I'll swear on this or swear on that. And, I try to keep myself from doing that, because for me, I want you to take me for who I am, and my word is my word. If I've got to embellish it somehow and say, oh, by the way, my mother in her grave believes me, and I'm gonna bring it up that she hears me. It's like, and like you said, it's like, really, why would you bring up your dead mother?
Right.
All right, because you have to believe me in what I say. It's a yes or no answer. If I want to tell the story, then I stick to the story. But I can also say that fish was this big when it was this big.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, Jesus is really dealing with integrity. Is what's at stake here, is because he wants people to know his followers are different. We're not hypocrites like the Pharisees. Rudy, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with everything. I like where Mark was going. Being a person of your word, right? Yeah. I think is something that, maybe we're losing a little bit today in our society, and just simply not being wishy-washy, right? Let your yes be yes, your no be no. And don't be indecisive, right? Don't be indecisive. Are you going or coming? And just, I think it also ties into being a person of integrity.
Yeah.
Right. And like you said, these are the kingdom principles that Jesus is laying out, right? Like, this is very foundational. I mean, this is his first major, presentation about the kingdom and what it stands for. And I just love these chapters in general, all of the different areas that we're going through to lay that foundation of what's the attitude that we should have as a Christ follower, and there's a lot of attitude out there, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of attitude out there.
Yeah.
And this is a good one.
Yeah. So speaking of that, right, we live in a culture where people are constantly spinning or positioning themselves, and they exaggerate, to your point, Mark, who they are or what they are, and they try to curate this image, but it's all a lie. It's all a lie. That's like, even like on social media, I call it fake book, because people only show you the image that they want you to
it's
see.
the highlight reel, right?
Yeah. Exactly. We talked about that. And so there is, Jesus is saying, don't be that guy.
Right.
So as Christian men, how do we set the standard, like what Jesus was saying? It's like, if you're going to be my followers, you got to raise the bar. You got to set the standard. How do we set the standard in a society that is so antithetical to everything that we're talking about here?
It's important, I think, for us to be straight shooters and to just kind of lay it out there, whatever our answer is, or whatever your comment on a particular topic or whatever. I know in our culture, there's a lot of passive aggressive, sarcastic kind of commentary, where what you say is sort of the opposite of what you mean. And I'll tell you personally, I just have a very difficult time filtering through that because I don't get it.
I'm surprised.
And I think
you're
it's
from Chicago.
And it's,
that should be like a second language.
Right, I understand.
I'm from New York, so I speak sarcasm fluently.
I know. I don't. I was absent that day, I guess. Whatever. But I have a hard time discerning that, and I think just in general it makes communication difficult when you're saying X but you really mean Y.
I'll tell you a quick funny story. It just popped in my head, and my wife's going to kill me for this. But when the kids were little, she would try to discipline the kids, and she would give them like chance after chance after chance, right? And so one day, one of my daughters, my middle daughter, Kristen, who's a live wire, was out in the backyard or doing something, playing with my niece. And my wife was reprimanding them, and then they were getting ready to go somewhere. And she said, if you don't stop fooling around and doing that, you're going to be punished. And my daughter, Kristen, who was maybe like 6 or 7, 8 years old at the time, said, oh, don't listen to her. She says that all the time. That is like the thing that we see today, face today, is like, like when you hear some guy that is just like all talk and no action, or just always running their mouth about whatever, or they're exaggerating, or it's like you can't really trust what someone says, and it makes you look at them kind of like side-eyed a little bit.
I'm sure we're going to start talking about professional stuff here, but you see it especially in sales avenues all the time. Because we're all in a position of where, you got to generate business and all that kind of stuff. But, how many times has somebody come into your office or given you a pitch about whatever, this is the greatest thing ever. This is great. And then, next month they're on to the next greatest thing ever, right? Like, okay, well, let's water that down just a little bit, shall we?
All right. Let's get into the next script. Now, this one is probably the most misquoted, misunderstood passage in probably the entire Bible. So I'm going to start in verse 38. So you have heard that it was said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I tell you, do not resist an evil person. If anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to them also the other cheek. If anyone wants, I'm going to stop there. So eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. If someone slaps you on the cheek, you're supposed to turn and let them smack you on the other cheek. At face value, that sounds like Christian's supposed to take a beating and be happy about it. That's not what he's talking about at all, right?
No, it's not.
So what he's really talking about is retaliation. See, what this standard was really meant for, and now the culture of the day was this was supposed to be used in the court of law to not have an equal justice. So in other words, and I remember probably going back to like Leviticus, if you killed someone's donkey or you whatever, like you had to like replace that donkey. Like like they couldn't retaliate and exacerbate and make the issue worse by overcompensating for it. So what Jesus is really saying here is like, don't have that get even with them attitude about stuff. Mark, like,
well,
what are you gonna say?
So I agree with what you just said, but in my mind, because the mind is such a powerful tool,
Sure.
I'm like, okay, man, you just slapped me on the right cheek. Let me turn around. Are you sure you want to slap me on the left? Because I'm going to give you the opportunity.
Yeah.
But think before you act. Because you slap me on the left cheek, there may be consequences. May not be from me, but think it through, But I like what you said about replacing the donkey or something like that. But I'm taking it as like, if you slap me on the right cheek, it's like, okay, I'm going to turn the left cheek. You want to take this any further?
Yeah, it was a legal thing
Yeah.
to prevent escalation, right?
Yeah.
And so to your point, when you were saying that, you remember the movie Rocky 3?
Yeah.
Okay, when he's fighting Clubber Lang, the first time he gets knocked out, second time, gets Apollo Creed to trade him, and now he's moving and he's a whole different kind of guy.
Yeah.
And so that whole training was to kind of avoid, getting hit by Clubber Lang. But then Rocky does something different. What does he do? He lets him hit him to frustrate Clubber Lang.
Yeah.
So I kind of think that this is a little bit of the same way. It's such that when Clubber Lang was hitting Rocky, he was protected himself. He was like, "Come on, hit me. Yeah. Is that all you got?" Yeah. My mother hits harder than that. Is that all you got? And so I kind of liken it to this a little bit, to where that if, back in the day, if they would like backhand you, it was a sign of disrespect. And so what Jesus is saying here is, if someone disrespects you like that, don't give into it. Don't give into it. Stand up to the point where it's like, you can't hurt me. And that's kind of like what Rocky was doing to Clubber Lang. He showed him that you cannot hurt me.
Yeah.
You realize that every time I read this now, I'm going to hear Eye of the Tiger.
Right. Yeah, that's a good thing, though. That's a good thing. What do you think, Rudy?
No, I love it. I mean, I'm a big Rocky fan myself, so I can totally appreciate that. And I mean, I think, getting back to kind of the attitude thing, right? Like, people are going to try to disrespect you or take advantage of you. So what's your heart? Like you were talking about at the beginning, what's your heart in that circumstance? Are you going to let that person, get to you basically? Or are you going to just kind of have, a heart of forgiveness, a heart of kindness, right? And it doesn't mean that you're a pushover and that you're going to let people walk all over you, but it is a heart of extending grace and mercy and forgiveness. And I think, which is all hard, which is all very hard, right? It's easier just to want to punch back.
Sure.
It's easier just to want to punch back or hit back. And so I don't know, that's kind of what stands out to me.
That's a great point. And so how do we exemplify that in society? Like there's a lot of times like we could get offended online, even like, people start these wars on social media, going back and forth, arguing about stupid stuff, and or even at work, we may feel slighted or offended. Like how, and then to your point, Rudy, the natural tendency is to want to hit back, is to want to get even. But as Christians, we're not supposed to do that, right?
Let me give you an example from an hour ago. like driving over here, southbound on the expressway, there was some folks in the left lane, and this one car like scooches over into the left and cuts this guy off who was in like a hot rod muscle car, right?
Mm.
And like missed him by inches.
Oh.
Probably just wasn't paying attention
Gosh.
or whatever. Well, naturally, the hot rod guy goes zipping around him,
Oh man.
cuts him off, and brake checks him.
Oh.
And the 3 cars behind him had to like jump into the middle lane right in front of me. Like there could have been a 4 or 5 car pileup like that.
Mm.
And then, then he barrels down the other side and, see you later. But, okay, we've all been there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? We've all been there. But I think the point is, if we look deeper into the person making the offense, who was just changing lanes and maybe not paying attention or just made a mistake or whatever, or somebody that's in a hurry, bigger hurry than me, why do I have to get so offended about that? Can't I just look deeper into it and say, hey, they have something going on that I don't know about?
That's right.
And let it go and let God take care of it.
Yeah, God ultimately is our vindicator, right? So that's important. But it goes back to what we were all saying. It's really what's in your heart.
Mm-hmm.
If you are easily offended
Mm-hmm.
and slighted, then are you truly submitted to God? Because and we're going to get into this a little bit. He's forgiven us of so much. How is it that the littlest offense we feel we need to retaliate on?
It's a surrender issue.
Yeah,
I mean,
it is. Completely is.
9 out of 10 is what we talk about in here is the surrender issue.
Yep.
But this is a real good example of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Any thoughts, Mark?
Well, I think to your point, the surrender issue is, we all have different things going on in our heads and
Sure.
our lives. Like you said, how people embellish things. You move on from one thing. Next month it's this, and this month it's that. But I think the one thing when we're in situations like that, or any situation, one of the things for me is I constantly tell myself, and I have a note and a sticker in my truck that says, be kind, be thoughtful. So that's telling me all the time, like you just said, I don't know what's going on in this person's world, but, to deliberately do what the guy did with the brake check, he was already agitated, frustrated, and whatever. And it's like, but did he really think that guy meant to do that? Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. But, one of the things for me is, especially with what we're studying today, and in the next chapter that we're going to, is, when you said earlier, if you thought of a woman or you did this, or telling a lie, even if you think that it's happened already because it happened in your mind.
Right.
So what's really important for me is being positive in silence in my own mind, because my mind, when I'm traveling or alone or even with my wife, sometimes, I'm asking God to give me patience and strength.
You bet.
So it's, and so I know by doing that, I don't even have to speak the words out loud,
Yeah.
because in my mind, God already hears me.
Yeah.
He knows my thoughts. He already knows the direction I'm going. He's just giving me the opportunity. Mark, do you see what I see?
Mm-hmm. Great point. Yeah. See, understanding the culture of the time and what the Jewish people were up against, they were occupied by the Romans, and the Romans totally would disrespect them constantly, and so that whole way of life became kind of like a stigma. Was a monkey on their back that they tried to throw off, and so unfortunately, they would even begin to treat each other, like that. And so a backhanded slap was kind of like a sign of dominance. Like they're being dismissive of you. There's a slap and, giving you the backhand. It wasn't really meant as an aggression, point of aggression. It's not like someone was going to punch him in the face and then, okay, punch me again and take abuse. Really what it was about was like putting that thumb of oppression down on someone and disrespecting.
You're beneath me.
Yeah, you're beneath me.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of that today in society. And people obviously we live in a society where people get offended, very, very easily, and it causes a lot of, unrest and strife and things like that are going on. Just turn on the TV. And so Jesus called us to be salt and light. How do we raise the bar? How do we raise the standard? How do we be the preservative in the world that kind of puts that to an end? And so, kind of going back to the Rocky analogy, what he was saying to Clubber Lang is like, you can't hurt me. Nothing you could do or say is like, it has no effect. And so the point of that is like Clubber Lang got so frustrated that he got him out of his game, and then Rocky winds up knocking him out because he couldn't affect him. I wonder, just thinking out loud, I wonder what society would be like if we didn't retaliate right from the get-go. Like if we didn't get offended so easily, if we just kind of like turned the other cheek and just kept moving on, to where that we become impervious to the stimulation, the stimulus to want to strike back or be a smart aleck or sarcasm and then get that whole thing going. Like, I mean,
but that was my whole point earlier.
Yeah.
To say, okay, you just struck me. Do you want to do that again?
Yeah.
And then by doing that, what you're saying is, I'm giving that person the opportunity. Do you want to make yourself look more foolish than you just did?
Exactly. That's really good. That's really good. See, I didn't catch that at first. I thought you were like, you're going to hit me. Let's go to fist.
I mean, hey, come on. I am a man from the South. But at the same time, I knew we were going to get further into this, and I did want to explain it because I knew that most people would take, okay, he's going to give him a chance before he lays him out.
Now, if I said that, you guys would automatically think, oh, he wants to beat someone up.
Yeah, yeah, but it's like, okay, you just did something foolish out of the spur of the moment and aggravation and in a heated moment, and that was your reaction. Okay, I'm going to give you another opportunity. Are you sure you want to continue down this path?
Because you're looking like a fool.
Because now, you've already, exposed yourself. Like you said earlier, people are trying to pretend, because today people lack integrity and self-confidence. And, when we grew up as young men, that's exactly what we were taught by our parents and our grandparents, is this is how you become a man of honor and integrity, by doing these things. And it's a yes or no answer. Mm-hmm. And sometimes there's no answer needed at all, because your actions say everything.
Amen, brother. That's awesome. Great. That's profound. Awesome. Very good. Very good. All right. So with that, let's move on to the next one, because I don't think I can say it any better than what Mark just said. That's awesome. All right. So verse 40, and if anyone wants to sue you and take your shirt, hand over your coat as well. Wow. That's okay. So in a court of law back in the day, when you had to give someone, quote unquote, your shirt or your tunic, that was considered a down payment for whatever legally binding agreement or disagreement you had. You had to give them literally the shirt off your back, right? And what Jesus is saying is, if they're forcing you to do that, which is really not right, give them your coat too, your jacket, your outer garment as well. Well, okay, well, what does that mean? You have to remember the culture and where they are. An outer garment is really meant for protection from the elements. And what Jesus is saying here is like, if they want that, let them have it. Let them have it. They can't steal from you, because I'm your provider. If they're going to take something that you think is protecting you, no, I'm your protector. Yes. I'm the one that's going to protect you. So let them have it. Don't even give it a second thought. What do you guys think about that interpretation?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, getting back to the fact that we're citizens of the kingdom, right? Mm-hmm. We're talking about kingdom principles and being citizens of that kingdom. And we recognize, like you were kind of describing, like, I'm not tied to this world, right? Like, if you want to sue me, you want to take me to court, you want what I have. I mean, I'll be transparent. I may fight you on it a little bit, but I'm not gonna go crazy over it, because it's like, I recognize, like, it's not mine anyways, right? It all belongs to God anyway. So sometimes, I think the Lord lets us go through, suffer loss and go through loss and suffer setback, because maybe He's purging us from certain things to see where our heart is really at, right? Because God can restore things, He can replace things and bless you with things, but sometimes He lets us suffer and go through things. So I kind of take that as like, making that distinction and delineation between kind of the culture and the world versus the kingdom, right? And not getting it confused, which I think we do a lot of times.
I think also too, what Jesus is saying here is He's exposing the injustice. Like, look how unfair this really is. Look how unfair. If they want to take your shirt, expose the injustice. Give them your jacket as well, because I got you. I got you. Don't worry. Don't worry about the system. Don't worry about the culture. Don't worry about the world, because you are, to your point, Rudy, a citizen of the kingdom of heaven, and I got you.
It's a perspective check.
Yeah.
Where you're like, okay, what is it that I believe that I should have, or what should be right from my perspective? And once that perspective changes such that it isn't about me,
that's right.
Whole different, outlook.
Good point. All right. So let's now get into this next one in verse 41. Now, this is really good, because if you've watched any of The Chosen, this will ring a bell. So, if anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go with them 2 miles. So I said about The Chosen. So back in the day, what was legal was a Roman soldier could force you to carry their equipment for a mile. What Jesus is saying, go 2 miles. Show them that they got nothing on you. Like, they can't get you out of character. They are not able to, resort their influence over you to get you out of character. And by you going 2 miles, it's like civil disobedience. It's showing them that no matter what you do, I'm still a servant of the Most High God. And so I heard a preacher say one time that they had an employee that I think that stole from them. And when they found out, the initial instinct was to, make him pay it back. He's like, no, you can't steal from me. I give it to you. If you needed it that bad to steal money from the ministry, keep it. And so Jesus is kind of setting the same standard here. It's like, if the Romans are forcing you to go a mile, go 2. Stick it in their face, So what's your take on that?
I think it's a great lesson in life to, for everyone to see that going the extra mile, it's not only a figure of speech, it's an action.
Yeah.
And it's taken upon yourself to do extra, to take longer, to do the right thing. Because at the end of the day, they see it, and maybe they don't see it as defiance. They go, wow, because a person in their right mind would be like, in my mind, it'd be like, touche.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, I alluded to the Chosen. Did you see that part where like the Roman soldiers made Jesus and the disciples carry their stuff for a mile?
Yep.
And like when they got to the mile, they were like, okay, and Jesus was like,
He kept going.
Yeah. And so it influenced his disciples to like, okay, I better get with the program. And so just the example I think that he set in that scene in the movie. Just imagine what the world would be like if we had more patience with people, if we had more consideration, if we held the standard or created a standard whereby what you were saying before, that came from a heart of love and mercy and grace.
Right. Because for what you're saying there, you have to see it as like, okay, the next person may not be ready to suffer that mile because they may not even be able to do it at this moment. And for him to say, okay, I've got this for another mile, that saved that other person to be prepared for their journey as well. And then that encouraged them to go, I can do a mile.
Mm-hmm.
It also makes me think of, I think what you touched on earlier about, our actions, right? And not always having to use words, right? Because a lot of times we want to talk ourselves in and out of stuff, but it's a lot of like, show me your action. And I think that's what going that extra mile is all about. And people are, will see that, right? Like they'll see your action. And that, for me, that speaks to, endurance and perseverance. And like you said, going above and beyond, when a lot of times, as we all know, right, we all want the easy shortcut. We want the easy path, easy path and the easy button.
That's right. That's right.
But, show me your deeds. The Bible talks about, show me your actions. Yeah. And then they'll see like, this there's something different about this person, so.
The most powerful ministry tool we have is not what we say, it's
how you behave, what you do.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. So think about this for a second, guys. In those kind of situations, and when you go the extra mile, what kind of example are you setting for the person that you're going the extra mile for? How does that change maybe their heart? Because like, and on The Chosen, some of the Roman soldiers were like, wait, what? You're going to do this for me? And you're going to, like, they started feeling bad that they were forcing them to even do it to begin with. And so it kind of changed their heart. So how much different society would be, to Rudy's point, like if we really had mercy and grace in our heart and we gave people the benefit of the doubt and we did go the extra mile for them, maybe they would get saved. Maybe their hearts would change.
Totally opens the opportunity for a conversation that would not otherwise have happened.
Right.
Yeah. And here's the thing that I consider, like, especially in that scene in The Chosen. So they do the mile, then they do the extra mile. Now they got to walk 2 miles back. That's a 4-mile trip.
Wow. That they weren't planning on.
That they weren't planning on.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
I also think about it in even just in today's terms, practical terms, from the perspective of the workplace. You touched a little bit about that, and kind of knowing a little bit about your background. Like, you can definitely, there are times in the workplace where you just definitely have to go above and beyond and exceed, because sometimes things are difficult, hard, and complicated, and they require a lot of patience, especially, when you're working on something complex project or whatever. So, there's just so many different ways that we can illustrate and demonstrate that.
Amen. All right, let's go. Let's do the next one. Verse 42. Give to the one who asks you, and do not turn away from the one who wants to borrow from you. All right, Brooke. So you're an investment banker.
Yeah.
You got some money for me, brother?
Yeah. Sure.
No, but
the funny thing about banks is we just we let you use it for a little while. Eventually, we want it back.
Yeah. Too funny, but yeah. So, but does this, what Jesus is saying here, does this mean that we're supposed to just like give money to everyone?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think
you're right. You're right.
I think what he's saying at the, again, at the heart of the matter is, there's power in discernment, but at the end of the day, our generosity will be used by God for whatever his ultimate purpose is. And if it's $1 or if it's $20 or if it's 20 grand,
Right.
whatever it is. Now here's, the practical application is you pull up to the stoplight and, there's a bunch of panhandlers at the stoplight. Well, what do you do? Is that $1 or a $20 opportunity? And how many of us have been, theoretically burned by one of those where we thought we were giving money to one place and it actually went somewhere else or for some nefarious purpose? But our hearts at that point with the generosity have to let the ultimate goal or the ultimate action, leave it in God's hands, because he'll figure it out.
Yeah. So wisdom and compassion are not diametrically opposed to
Correct.
To one
they work
another.
hand in hand.
Yeah. So what Jesus is really talking about here is, again, we're talking a lot about the abuse of the system and the injustice in society at the time, because there were no social services back then. There was like, if you were a widow, an orphan, or you were lame and you couldn't work or whatever, it's like you had no other choice to beg. And it was probably more prevalent than we realized. And so what Jesus is telling the disciples here is like, you got to have compassion for people. But you also too, to your point, in today's society, we have to use wisdom as well. What do you think, Mark?
That's a tough one for me because I'm on the road all day, every day, and I see these things on corners and so forth, and I do see people that are in need, and sometimes it just, we're in such a rush that it's like, okay, I don't have time for that, or I don't have that dollar or change or something, but I have a bottle of water. And the reaction you get sometimes from it, you can tell that, well, I'm glad I had a bottle of water and not $5, just because of the reaction you got from, hey, I know you're standing out here in the hot sun and so forth. To your point, which one is it? Yeah. Is it compassion or an obligation to feel for these people? Because some of these people, like to your point, is taking advantage of others. Hey, feel sorry for me, but I'm going to go around the block and get in my Cadillac and drive off to my $500,000 home.
It's funny. I had a friend who, this was in South Florida. You don't see it that much here in Dallas area, especially where we live, like in Frisco, Prosper, that Plano, that we don't see a lot of panhandlers. In South Florida, they're on every corner, especially during the winter. They all come down and they're holding up the "I will work for food" sign. So I had a buddy that was like, "Hey, I got a bunch of stuff I need to get rid of. I want to clean out the garage. I need I want someone to, do all this stuff." And he went around like they were like, no, just give me $5.
Yeah. Like, wait, what happened to the working part?
What? It's kind of a ploy. Like they weren't really. So it's not about enabling.
Yeah.
So when you have compassion for people, it's not about enabling bad behavior or enabling even like drug or alcohol addiction or any of that. It's about having a heart of compassion that wants to do something, do the right thing for those people. And so don't feel as though what this scripture is saying is that we have to be a sucker. We have to, every time we see someone on the corner, we got to give them money. Right. Okay. All right.
Awesome.
So now in verse 43, we're going to be talking about loving our enemies. That's a tough one. All right. Okay. All right. So verse 43, you have heard that it was said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, that you may be children of your Father in heaven. He causes his sun to rise on the evil and on the good, and sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. If you love those who love you, what reward will you get? Are not even the tax collectors doing that? And if you greet only your own people, what are you doing more than others? Do not even pagans do that? Be perfect, therefore, as your heavenly Father is perfect. Lot to unpack there.
I think there's an interesting irony because he references tax collectors.
That's right.
And who was the author here?
That's right, Matthew.
Yeah.
And what is Matthew?
Former tax collector.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. All good points. So again, what Jesus is addressing here is the cultural belief that it was okay to love your own people, but to separate and shun people that were different from you, right? And it was well known throughout Scripture how the Jews hated the Samaritans. They hated the Romans, but they really hated the Samaritans, right? And so what Jesus is saying here is you got to go beyond, this society. You got to go beyond the cultural things, the religious things, the things that separate us: race, religion, politics, right? You got to get beyond that. Is what Jesus is saying here. And he's like, if you love your own people, well, even the people who you don't like, they love their own people too. So how are you any different than that? So you're not, and again, what Jesus is trying to do here with the Sermon on the Mount is raise the standard, raise the bar. So he's calling that to their attention. And so, but the big thing that he is saying here is that God makes the sun to shine on everyone. Mm-hmm. He makes the rain, which we need to rain on everybody. He treats everybody equally. And additionally, it's saying that God so loved the world, that's everyone, that he gave his only begotten Son.
That's right.
And so that's really at the crux of the matter here, is that God loved us while we were yet sinners, and he sent his only Son for us. So who are we to try to separate people? Who are we to try to look down on others because they're not like us? What are your thoughts?
It was interesting. One of my high school teachers used to have this catchphrase that he used all the time, and I never really thought much about it until later in life. But he always used to say, "Hey, we're all God's children," and I didn't really know what he meant, but I do now.
Yeah,
right. And it falls exactly in line with what you're saying about the rain and the sunlight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what Jesus was warning against here is exactly what we have today. It's called tribalism. And tribalism is, well, my group is better than your group. Mm-hmm. And if you're a part of that group, I'm just going to oppose you because you're a part of that group.
Yeah.
And so look at what's been happening this past week, what's going on in Minnesota.
Yeah, it's bad.
It's bad. That's tribalism at its finest. You got people showing up to protest this and that. They're being paid to do that. And then you got, the ICE agents trying to do their job and trying to do things, and they're getting frustrated, and they're, unfortunately a couple of people got killed, but that's what happens when the fever pitch is so high, and the rhetoric coming from our leaders is so divisive yeah. that it foments that thing. And so this is what Jesus is talking about here. Don't just care about the people that are like you. Don't just love the people that love you. You got to love your enemy. You've got to build bridges. You can't just separate society and have all these different factions and things. Christians, we should not be involved in that kind of thing at all. We should be the peacemakers, like we talked about last time. Not the people that are stirring the pot.
Well, it goes back to your story of the person stealing the money from the church.
Yeah.
Okay. The right thing to do in our minds is like, okay, you were caught. You got the opportunity to pay it back. But then the church, the leader of the church goes, no, if you needed it that bad, then you hold on to it. But think about what you did. And then that makes that person rethink, wow, forgiveness is such a powerful tool. And I think all of us today, especially with what you mentioned going on that I won't get into,
Right.
because I could go completely off the rails.
But you do see the parallel.
Oh,
there,
no,
right?
I see
Yeah,
the parallels
yeah,
because it's funny now how all of this that has happened every year and under every administration, but now all of a sudden it's to the forefront. And yes, it is, because people are being paid to protest it because they can't do this on their own. They can't say yes or no, or I'm going to love my neighbor and be compassionate as I love my enemy, or hate my enemy, which I should love,
right.
So it goes back to that story. It's all about using your mind and being able to forgive, because even you mentioned it earlier that God challenges us and takes things from us to say, if you are willing to give of this freely, I will replace it for you, but have an open heart and an open mind.
Yeah. See, the thing is, we were all enemies of God.
Oh,
And God
Oh,
forgave
that's right.
all
That's
of
a
us.
good point.
Right.
Good point.
Yeah.
And so that's what Jesus is saying here is like, look, you guys do all the, like, you love the people that love you. You hang out with the people that, that are like you. And, you hate everybody else. Well, you may have been taught that, but guess what? I'm raising the standard here because everyone belongs to God.
Yeah.
And if he loves everyone, then guess what? You got to love everyone. And you're no better than any of these other people that are doing that. If you want to be a citizen of the kingdom of heaven, then you have to love everyone. So the big question then becomes, who are the Samaritans in our life? Who are the people that we don't get along with? Who are the people that are different than us, or may think differently or believe differently, that we need to build that bridge with?
And it may not even be that we carry hatred, but just complete indifference.
Yeah.
I'm going to say something that's probably going to be a little controversial. Okay. So like if you only hang out and you're only around the people that are like you, then you almost become inbred. It's like if all you do is associate in your own little clique, then your world becomes like really, really, really small. And that's how congenital disease and illness is passed on. And when you're only having that gene pool dictate what you're going to be like, then your offspring are that much worse off for it. And so I think in society, if we're only hanging out with people that are like us, then we're doing ourselves a disservice, and for future generations, we're doing them a disservice. Because even Paul had to address that. He said, when I told you not to hang out with covetous, idolaters, fornicators, and all that, I didn't mean the people of the world because they're like that. I meant people in the church. And so it's like, okay, Jesus is kind of saying the same thing here. He's like, man, you got to build bridges. We can't be stuck in just hanging out with people that are exactly like us.
Yeah, I like that. I like that build bridges thing for sure. And I like what you said about the indifferent, like we may not have hate towards somebody, but just being indifferent. Like we are different. I mean, at the end of the day, we are different, right? Whether it's in appearance, in culture, or lifestyle, whatever, there's just so many differences that we have. But the challenge is trying to overcome those differences by building that bridge, that you're talking about with the love your enemy, love others, or the golden rule, treat others as you would want to be treated. But then you also hear in 1 John about the great, the additional commandment where he says, love as I have loved you, and so you got to build those bridges. And in that building the bridge process, man, it's messy.
Of course.
It's uncomfortable. This person gets on my crazy nerves, because they think a certain way. But you know what, again, going back to sometimes, you need the left and you need the right. Let's be real here. You need the left and you need the right, because the left balances out the right? And the right balances out the left. But and to try to get to a middle, right? In the middle being, unity, having unity, right? And the Bible talks about that in the Psalms, right? You know, the unity, how good and pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together. And so, but I'll be the first, and it can be your own family. It could be the neighbor down the street, your own family. That it's uncomfortable and it's hard. But again, going back to going above and beyond, you know, a higher standard, like you were talking about, and it's hard to be a Christian.
Yeah, it's not easy.
It's not easy.
Definitely not easy. All right, guys. So you see here, we're at the end here, but I wanted to bring this to your attention to see if you were catching this. So in the beginning, when we were talking about, you know, the Beatitudes, and then we started to get in a little bit into the Sermon on the Mount and what it means to be a citizen of the kingdom of heaven. It was really about our relationship with God, right? And now these last couple of examples that Jesus was talking about is our relationship with people. And so how we treat other people. And it's all of it is a matter of the heart. And so what Jesus is really dealing with here is like, if you think you're right with God because you're keeping a bunch of do's and don'ts laws, you're wrong. If you think that you can be right with God without being right with people, you're wrong. So it's really about keeping our hearts right with God and with other people. And if we do that, then we'll see that the principles that he is espousing, that we will be salt and light, and we will be a preservative in the world, and the thing that brings it flavor, and that will attract other people, like, you know, like the light of the world that he expects us to be.
Yeah.
Closing remarks, thoughts?
I'd say direction and connection, both vertically and horizontally.
And there you have it.
Yeah, there you have it. Thanks for joining us on the Regular Guys Bible Study, where we keep it real and relevant and dig deep into God's Word. If today's episode blessed you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share so others can grow alongside with us. Our foundational verse is Acts 17:11. And the people of Berea were more open-minded than those in Thessalonica, and they listened eagerly to Paul's message. They searched the scriptures daily to see if what Paul and Silas were teaching were true. And that's our prayer for you, that you eagerly receive the word and examine the scriptures daily to see if what we're teaching is true. So drop us a comment, send us a question. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, may God bless you and keep you in his perfect will. So always stay curious and stay Berean.